Across the endless gulfs of the multiverse, there are warriors who exist not merely as beings of power, but as embodiments of paradoxes. Lobo, the Czarnian, is one such paradox. An immortal bounty hunter who exterminated his own race for the sake of proving a point. He is a creature who lives in a perpetual rebellion against meaning. He cannot die, cannot be stopped, and his strength rivals God's. Yet beneath his leather chains and mocking grin, there lies the hollowness of someone who knows that nothing in his existence will ever be final. Even destruction is meaningless, for he simply rises again. In another reality far removed from cosmic bounties and galactic wars, there is a bald man who shops for groceries, worries about sales at the supermarket, and complains about missing a TV broadcast. He is Saitama, a man who trained until he surpassed every conceivable limit, and in doing so accidentally turned himself into the most powerful being in his world. But unlike Lobo, his paradox is not immortality, it is simplicity. He can defeat any opponent with a single punch, and yet this victory has stripped him of fulfillment, leaving him trapped in boredom and longing for an opponent who can make him feel alive again. One day, through the cracks of colliding dimensions, the trajectories of these paradoxes intertwine. The multiverse itself groans under the strain of anomalies caused by endless battles across realities. The Watchers, the Monitors, the hidden gods behind observation, notice ripples converging, bringing Saitama and Lobo onto the same stage. For some, this clash is entertainment, for others it is horror. But for the two combatants, it is something stranger, a mirror to their own existential condition. When Lobo receives word of a bald cape who wins every fight without breaking a sweat, his curiosity is piqued not because he respects the claim, but because he despises the idea that someone else could be untouchable. Lobo thrives on challenge, on the messiness of conflict. The idea of a man who trivializes combat offends his chaos-driven pride. He rides his space bike across a breach between worlds, cigars clenched between his teeth, grinning at the thought of putting this so-called unbeatable hero in his place. Saitama, meanwhile, barely reacts. He stares at the intruder from his apartment balcony, grocery bag dangling from one hand. He senses no threat, no dread, only the faint possibility that maybe, just maybe, this opponent could last more than a single hit. What begins to stir in his heart is not excitement but a question. Can this be the fight that finally breaks the monotony? They meet on an abandoned plane where the skies burn with dimensional static. Lobo laughs, cracking his knuckles, chains whirling with feral anticipation. He boasts of immortality, of battles with gods and Kryptonians, of universes drenched in his carnage. He tells Saitama that power without consequence is a joke, that a fight is only real when it threatens everything, including yourself. To Lobo, Saitama's victories are hollow, because if you cannot be hurt, if you cannot be killed, then you are not truly fighting. Saitama listens, blinking, then replies with a disarming honesty. He tells Lobo that what he describes sounds an awful lot like himself, that Lobo too cannot be killed, that Lobo too has wandered through battles where nothing can end him. Saitama admits that he does not feel excitement in victory, because victory is inevitable, but he wonders aloud, what is the difference between him winning too easily and Lobo never being able to lose? Are they not both trapped by powers that deny them closure? For the first time in eons, Lobo pauses. The Czarnian is not a philosopher. He laughs at wisdom and spits in the face of gods. But this bold man's words strike a chord, for they reflect the truth Lobo buries beneath jokes and bloodshed. His immortality is not triumph, it is an endless sentence. If death cannot come, then what meaning does victory hold? Yet Saitama presses further, his eyes briefly serious. He suggests that perhaps the meaning is not in whether they can die, but in whether they can be satisfied. He argues that the point of a fight is not the risk of loss, but the joy of struggle, and if both of them are cursed with powers that steal away risk, then maybe the only way left to measure their worth is to see whose paradox is heavier, Lobo's endless survival or Saitama's inevitable victory. This philosophical tension becomes the backdrop of their impending clash. The gods who watch do not realize that this fight is not about death or survival, it is about whose curse breaks first. Will Saitama finally find an opponent who cannot be ended, or will Lobo finally meet someone who makes immortality feel irrelevant? The stage trembles as they prepare. In that silence before chaos, one can almost sense the weight of eternity hanging on the edge of fists. For in this encounter, the laughter of madness and the silence of boredom will collide, and only one will walk away justified. The air splits as Lobo charges first, his chain whistling through the void as he swings it toward Saitama with enough force to cleave a mountain. The ground detonates beneath his feet, shockwaves ripping across the plain, but Saitama simply sidesteps with his grocery bag still in hand. Lobo grins wider, pleased that his prey didn't fall instantly. He pulls a massive gun from his back, firing rounds that detonate like miniature suns. Each explosion blossoms into infernos that could incinerate armies, but Saitama yawns, swats the fireballs aside with flicks of his wrist, and finally sets his groceries down. The ground quakes again as Lobo leaps high, crashing down with a punch that craters the earth for miles, but Saitama catches it with a single palm. The impact sends tsunamis of dust spiraling into the stratosphere, yet Saitama remains unshaken, his cape fluttering lazily. "Is that it?" he asks. The words sting Lobo's pride. Roaring, he regenerates chainsaws from his arms, hurls grenades infused with alien plasma, and tears open the dimensional seams with sheer rage. Each time Saitama is struck, the blow lands true. Bones snap, flesh burns, skulls split, but in the next instant, Lobo reforms, laughing through the blood, boasting that nothing can end him. Yet every time Saitama counterattacks, Lobo is obliterated into gore, his body scattered across miles, only to reassemble. The battlefield becomes a grotesque cycle. One punch, one resurrection, one taunt, and the cycle repeats. It seems endless, a stalemate between the man who cannot lose and the man who cannot die. The gods whisper that this fight will never end. But then something shifts. Saitama's expression, normally blank, hardens ever so slightly. He realizes that the cycle itself is the test. Lobo fights to prove that immortality makes him untouchable, that survival is victory. Yet Saitama understands a deeper truth. Victory is not about survival. Victory is about inevitability. No matter how many times Lobo resurrects, it is Saitama who dictates the rhythm. Every exchange ends the same way, with Lobo destroyed. The Czarnian's immortality, once a badge of pride, becomes meaningless because it cannot alter the outcome. Whether it takes one punch or 1,000, the end is predetermined. Saitama always wins. At last, in one final clash, Lobo hurls himself forward, detonating an arsenal of suns around them. The cosmos splits, dimensions buckle, and the watchers turn their eyes away. In that storm of annihilation, Saitama steps through the chaos and delivers a punch not aimed at Lobo's body, but at the very essence of his defiance. The impact shatters the illusion of equality. Lobo explodes into fragments that take longer and longer to reform, his laughter faltering, his bravado cracking. He tries to rise again, but finds that even though he cannot die, the cycle has broken. For what use is resurrection if it only prolongs the same defeat? He realizes, to his horror, that immortality does not mean victory, it means eternal subjugation to a stronger hand. And in that moment, he knows Saitama has already won. Saitama turns away, unimpressed yet faintly contemplative. He does not cheer, he does not gloat. He merely collects his groceries and begins to walk home. Behind him, fragments of Lobo continue to twitch and laugh weakly, but the laughter now carries despair. For though his body will return, his spirit has been struck with a truth more devastating than death, that survival without triumph is meaningless, and against Saitama, triumph is impossible. The multiverse falls silent, awed not by spectacle but by philosophy. The battle was not about who could kill or who could survive, but about who defined the terms of existence. In this clash, inevitability outweighed immortality. Saitama's boredom remains, but for a brief moment, he has found clarity. He knows that no matter how many worlds collide, the outcome will always be the same. And for Lobo, the paradox of endless life has been replaced by a heavier curse, the knowledge that some fights are lost before they begin. Thus ends the clash, with the man who never loses standing unchallenged, and the man who never dies left questioning the point of eternal survival. In the dust and silence, the truth echoes. Saitama is the winner, not by killing, but by proving that victory is not about living forever. It is about making the outcome inevitable.